justify why you should have an existence at my high school. And I looked at him and I'm like, I don't. I'm like, yeah, I really don't have to do that. I'm like, good luck.
Welcome back to Teacher Tales, where we give you the keys to overcoming teacher burnout to find work-life balance and educational bliss if it still exists. I'm your host, Tony Rambles, and on this interview episode of Teacher Tales, decisive action, passion, and unfortunately rejection take center stage. This journey of navigating and ultimately leaving the classroom is full of energy and laughter. I hope you take away as much as I did from it. Enjoy. So, welcome, Kirsten, to the show.
Thank you. Awesome,
Reached
I'm
out.
here.
Yeah. You reach out to people, and so I'm grateful because I'm excited to hear the details of the story. I only just got a little bit, but please, you talked about coming to this epiphany moment, right? So just
Right.
build us into it, right? You became a teacher and then you come to this moment. How did that
Okay.
happen?
Okay, you got it. I was a high school teacher, middle school and high school, but English and social studies in Florida, as well as reading and ESOL, English as a second language. And so I specialized actually in juvenile offenders and struggling student
Mm,
misfits in that student population.
mm-hmm,
And we had a horrible statistic of the failing freshmen coming into my high school. And so I had been in several different research based training programs of all of the, closing the gap of all of these academic interventions. I actually
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
was an award winning academic intervention specialist. Okay. I love what I did. I love working with the students. And COVID struck, and
Oh,
I decided to write my ideas of a mixture of an academic intervention with personal growth. I
mm,
overlaid in the identity work along with again, these research communication points of what people should do intellectually as they're developing to make them strong and powerful people in our world. Right. So
yeah.
it's a mix of English and social studies academics. And my teacher friends, I hope, are all nodding my head like I see you are. So, in writing the book, it's a program that I put together. I also produced the teacher guide because I wanted it to be distributed across the country. I wrote a memoir, sort of the philosophy book for teachers to explain it on the big level. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm really continuing it as a project, looking for teachers that have this same student population and really want to try something different. I
Mm-hmm.
hit the supreme roadblock of the institutions. My own principal was like patting me on the head saying, that's great. Go back in the classroom. Miss Peck, I need you to teach. Don't be a writer. I need you to teach. So, okay, COVID ends. All right, that's all cool. We're back in the classroom. That's going on. And I wrote another book called Create Your Best Future, which is about
Mm-hmm.
authentic living and more of this identity work of pulling back. What is it that we really love to do and why do we really love to do it? And at the end of it, I realized, teaching is great, but that's not really what I really do, really.
Right.
I'm a transformation specialist. I see problems and make them better.
Mm-hmm.
I do it in my classroom with all my misfit juvenile delinquent students, trying to get them to realize their potential. I love to do it with real estate and art and creative things, which is
Mm,
basically when I had this great epiphany of like, wait a minute, I actually make more money with real estate than I do teaching.
mm,
Why do I have to be a teacher? Why does this have to continue this way? And when I was fighting my school districts, my whole state of Florida, my LinkedIn connections, I have 1,000, all of these things that I was doing, pushing out my program of my best work as a teacher. How many times are you going to get put down and said, go back to your classroom? Can you make sure you get your attendance in on time? And it's like, hey, that's enough of that. So long story short, I sold my house and I moved over here to Puerto Rico. I bought my house the third day I was here. I've now been here 2 years. I absolutely love it. I'm still in this weird genre of trying to help save the world through my academic mix of English and social studies and consciousness, because the problems are here in Puerto Rico as much as they are in Tampa, which is where I was teaching last.
How did that make you feel when you've got this great resource? Because I'm sure at that point, people was probably telling you how great of a teacher you are, and you won the awards for being an intervention specialist. Like, so clearly you're doing great work in the classroom, but people were just constantly putting this glass ceiling on you, even though you had the track record to back up the information and the resource that you were bringing forth. How did that,
Yeah.
how did you
Well,
reconcile that
it's gut.
within
You can't. It's gut
Mm,
wrenching. I mean, it's your pinnacle. It's a hypocrisy, and they tell teachers to empower the kids, and that you could teach, anybody could be anything, and all of these amazing things that we know are true because we've all been trained, right? And then when it's our turn and we
mm,
go into our meetings, they do the
mm.
most horrible practices ever and expect us just to be like, oh, well, that's okay. We're just going to keep going. We can
Right.
adapt to what crap you put onto us, and yet you still expect us to be performing above and beyond. And it
Right.
just gets to be ridiculous. And I focus grouped it with the students. They all loved it. They were all so encouraging of me that it makes it really hard for me to put it down and not be doing it.
Wow.
And yet I've gut wrenched so many years through it. And I mean, if you look at my website, anybody looks at my YouTube channels, please talk to me, because I want to help. I did it to help all of us,
Mm-hmm.
and I named it the Smart Start Challenge. It's a 31-day training program. I wrote it like it's a brain pump you up marathon, crazy, over the top, your best cheerleader, psycho teacher.
Motivational.
It's all motivation every day, up and sideways. And the idea was that any teacher could run it during lunch. It's 15 minutes a day. Here's your turnkey journal prompts, kid, go write. And so I'm like, I give up. I give up. I wrote the Create Your Best Future. I had to move here. And so now I'm doing this as a retreat. I've decided to kind of package it in a 3-day getaway weekend, because I can transform anybody in a weekend.
Wow.
And it's a very weird and powerful thing to claim to be able to do. And I verbalize it to you as a teacher and say, English teachers and social studies teachers, you guys know what I'm talking about. When you get to critical thinking and you get to problem solving and you empower the student and you authorize anything that they like to do, anything, and empower them to do it, they will rise to the occasion. And I say that I was teaching in jail. I had a juvenile, 2-time car theft felon. 2 times he was sitting in jail, and not going to do anything. And I'm like, sweetie, you need to. I'm sorry, but you're not good at stealing cars. No offense, no offense, but you're not any good at it, right?
We need a new thing to do.
Yeah, so let's talk about race car driving, or let's talk about tow truck driving, or let's talk about repossessing. Why don't you start repoing cars? Because then you could get paid to be repoing the car, and it's like, and seeing him light bulbs going off over his head. And
Yes.
he then was coming to school and was coming to my class because then
Mhm.
I connected with him.
Let me know the kid, and then we just go from there. Because I'm not, my goal is to try to help the child, regardless of
Absolutely.
what they have going on. You go, all right, well, what can I do to help? Instead of how can I judge this kid, or how can I get him in trouble or get him out of my classroom, him or her.
They're my
Uh,
favorite. No, they were always my favorite.
I'm always saying, like, just because a kid may have a bad grade or they don't want to do the work in my class, it doesn't make them a bad kid, right? I very, very seldom put the quote unquote bad label on someone because, I mean, a lot of times people aren't bad. There are always circumstances that surround them. They may be making some bad decisions at the time, but bad, I think when you stick that on somebody, man, that could be very detrimental, to their thinking and
It
how
is.
they, yeah, how they see themselves and how they see the
Yep.
world, how they see adults. And then if I'm, a young black man saying that this, put whatever they look like on the table, doesn't really matter. But now they can in turn see, okay, now young black people, I don't know if I like young black guys anymore because they think I'm bad, right? Because that is
Right.
the way that I've presented it, and I think that's what happens with, we could go off into a whole different
Oh yeah.
area there, but there's so much that we can do in the classroom that helps these kids. So just hearing your story, I'm feeling like your burnout, it didn't even come from kids in the classroom. It didn't come from any of that stuff. It
No.
was you being this person who has a gift to do something that will really change lives. But your growth was being stunted. You were being
Yep.
halted at every turn. And so my question here is, what was the process of putting these books together and then being able to now put a course or retreat together for the teacher that is out there listening that feels like I'm talented at something and I may not be able to do it in the education system, or I can't do this in class because of all of the roadblocks they put in our way. How can
Right.
I take that gift and then maybe get out of education and use it to still educate people?
Right. Well, that's a function of writing curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when I first started, the I realized that my students couldn't read the book at the grade level that we were on.
Right, right.
I came in mid-year and the bad worst stories of the worst teacher, nobody in the class, nobody wanted. They'd had a substitute for a month, all of this craziness in
Yep.
middle school. I had a sixth grade and eighth grade split of middle school.
Oh.
And I decided, I came from a business background in marketing. And I decided that, okay, I'm going to have to pull the content for them to read. And I started teacher training, and they handed me the 10 standards for reading and the 10 standards for writing of the Common Core because that was just being begun.
Oh
And I
no.
basically saw, okay, you have two things to read and two things to write. And so let's
Mm-hmm.
get talking about what do you guys like? And
Yes.
I played put it in the student focused learning. And I said, and I had, I love to debate. Everybody loves to fight. Let's debate. And we'd have discussions about chocolate compared to Skittles.
Okay,
And
let's
if
do
you
it.
prefer chocolate, you guys need to come up with a team chocolate. I need 3 reasons why chocolate is superior to a Skittle. And you on
That's
the
what I'm
Skittle
talking
team need to be, and get that culture started. Get the concept that school can be okay.
about.
School can
Mm-hmm.
be kind of fun. It doesn't have to be horrible. And then I'd be like, I'd hold up the book and the textbook and be like, this is horrible. I understand it, but we're going to have to read it anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
let's read and oh look, let's start with Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory because we're going to have this big discussion about chocolate versus Skittles, you
Mm-hmm.
know, or and somehow pull whatever thing I could manage to get out of the textbook that would somehow qualify as being approved content,
Mm-hmm.
right? and then making up my own game as to how to trick the students into thinking.
That's what I'm talking about. Like good teachers take whatever they have with those students and you go, okay, how can we take this and we make it learning material? Right? I do it.
Yes.
I, I'm not just going to say me. The good teachers, that's how they teach because you have to meet the students where they are. What is their lingo? What are they
Yep.
into? Because if
Yep.
you're a good teacher, you're going to be able to go, okay, if I'm teaching rhetoric or sentence stems, or I'm teaching World War One, all right, I can look out
Yep.
into whatever is going on related to that so that they can go, oh, okay. That's Napoleon was like
Absolutely.
this guy, or this person was like that, right? If you are any good at your job as a teacher, I would say the good teachers, the best teachers, that's what
Yep.
they do. Because
Yep.
otherwise, how are you getting through to these kids? They don't want to read Romeo and Juliet, right? They don't want to read a lot of the stuff that we had to read growing up, right? They're tired of reading Beowulf. Okay. It's just
Well,
not.
but you got to, but from an exposure
Mm-hmm.
of world literature,
Mm-hmm.
Beowulf has his point. I mean, no, it doesn't have to be in depth, all the yada, yada, yada. But yes, you should be able to see how Beowulf relates to, I don't know, Grizzly Adams or something, of like,
Right.
and Romeo and Juliet is seen a million times over in how many different ways.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
so all those
And
things, So yeah, I mean, I, for me, I just decided that I didn't have to do it anymore.
so take us
I
to that
mean, and
day. Take us to the day
yeah,
where you go, you know what? This
I
is it.
don't
I'm
have to
stepping
do
out of
this.
here and I'm not coming back.
Yeah. Well, and it's weird because my license is expiring now in 2 months. And I really am at the point of going, okay, am I really not doing this anymore? Like,
Mm.
um, no, I mean, it just, for me, the authentic living piece of, life is short and there's things that you really love to do. And there's things that we got lost along the way of having to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
it's not, I don't want to look back. I don't look to the past to try to solve all those things. I'm much more of an action steps moving forward and solutions. Yes, the analysis piece is good in order to come up with solutions, but
Mm-hmm.
problem solving is forward looking
Mm-hmm.
and moving forward and setting any goal, because you can reach any goal. I know that to be a fact as well. And so this sort of, which, what are you going to do with it? And
Yeah.
so, one more time of being patted on my head and being told, justify why you should continue teaching the seniors and this, blah, 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 justify why you should have an existence at my high school. And I looked at him and I'm like, I don't. I'm like, yeah, I really don't have to do that. I'm like, good luck.
So is that how you are earning a living now? You're doing your retreats, you have your books. Like, walk us through that piece before we get to the 5 W's.
Well, part of my best future in my life here is
Mm-hmm.
real estate focused more than teaching focused,
Mm-hmm.
and creative focused rather than academic focused. I coach online, and I have a couple kids I'm trying to get into getting prepared to be seniors. I
Mm-hmm.
taught here for about a month. I got a job at Montessori school, one of
Mm-hmm.
the great schools here on the island. Awesome, great situation. Walked into it, and the same thing happened. And it was like for half the salary. And I just looked at him. I'm like, no, again, I'm not going to do this.
Mm-mm.
No, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And this validates the fact that I do not want to deal with admin, because they say they want to do stuff, but then they don't want to really do it.
Mm. So speaking of
Okay.
tutoring and literature, we can't talk about that without bringing up the 5 W's.
Okay.
So
Yes.
we have our who, what, when, where, why. So where did you see yourself 5 years ago? I'm pretty sure it changed along the way. And I think we have have gotten there. So where was it 5 years ago that you saw yourself?
Um, that was about the time. Well, that was about the time I started writing the Smart Start Challenge program.
What place you wrote
I
that?
was in a I went to a week-long training program of how to mentor these failing freshmen for the 4 years of high school.
Mhm.
And just, I lost my mind. I just was like, this is ridiculous. This is just absolutely ridiculous. There's got to be a way to merge all this together.
Where did you ultimately see your plan that you created? Like, if it was once you made it, did you feel like, okay, I'm gonna introduce this and then I'm gonna be teaching this curriculum to our district and then possibly the other districts? Did you see it
Yes.
going that far? That was the plan?
Yes, the whole thing it was
Mm.
designed to be rolled out to any high school. And it was designed to address the 4 years of mentor program that was research based, smushed into 31 days.
So now we're going to continue to our next W.
Okay.
Uh, that's going to be, let's go with who. And I'll ask who in education has helped you the most. That could be somebody earlier on, that could be somebody that helped you through this time of you leaving. Who's that person?
Well, I'm going to have to say my mom because my mom was a teacher and was part of integrating the schools in Pinellas County where we lived back in the
Wow.
70s. And so I'm a second generation teacher. I remember going with her when she was getting her master's, and we used to go over and sit at the college as she was getting her master's because
Mhm.
I was her kid. I guess I've always been in the library.
You've just been trained to teach and you're still doing it. So I'm gonna go to what, and I'm gonna ask, what's your favorite thing to teach people? This could be in the classroom, out of the classroom, the stuff that you do now. What's your favorite thing to teach?
Right now, I'm digging on the creative thinking process
Mm-hmm.
and how creative thinking is based on you being the expert and that you are trying to make a statement that will create an action of something. You're trying to make a statement and just how that works and how different influences come together and
Mm.
playing it in different ways and the mix up of things.
I feel like
And
that's
that,
all of my projects where these different influences are always, I'm like, well, this could be cool. Or, hey, I got to teach resumes, but how do I make this fun? What if these kids had superpowers as part of their resume? And like now you're a hero, but you also are an accountant. So,
yes, yes. And I think the fun part is that it makes it less like there's going to be a wrong answer.
mhm,
If you
absolutely.
say, my superpower is I'm a mermaid, you're not going to say that's wrong. You're not a mermaid. No, you just asked me. It's got that kind of, you can't be wrong. If we get to define our success,
Hmm.
then we also get to define our failures. And so, maybe it's not really a failure. Maybe it is that learning experience, and that
Hmm.
then is what you adapt and change and try it again, which is what's the creative thinking process.
So we're going to jump to the next W, which is going to be when.
Uh huh.
When did you begin to feel confident in yourself as a teacher?
Confident.
Yes.
Well, I jumped into teaching mid-year. I had a business marketing background. I was at a middle school. Nobody wanted the job. Basically the first week because
Wow.
I had been substituting for 2 years trying to get a job. And I basically was like, "You know what? I'm not leaving. These
Hmm.
students are not going to scare me so bad that I'm going to leave." because that's the thing that was going on. And so it wasn't so much confident in my ability to do the job as like be a good teacher. It was much more the fact of like, oh no, you little snotty little kids are not going to beat me out of this come Friday afternoon.
Yep. Okay, our last W, and then I'm gonna let you get out of here. It's been awesome. Why did you initially become a teacher? What was that thing that made you go, I think I'm gonna go into the classroom? Because you talked about your background and you did business. So
Yeah.
why did you become a teacher?
Well, I was in Florida doing real estate and business marketing, and the 2008 housing market collapsed.
Ooh. Mhm.
And you got to get a job, kind of a thing. I also, in my personality, I'm bossy. You haven't noticed. And I really, as I got into it more as a substitute, and in this, back to my reaction is to that first week at school and being
Mhm.
like, oh, I can do this, was that idea of like, I can run the classroom and do the teacher stuff,
Mhm.
right? And I can hang out with the teenagers and do what I want to do, interacting with them, teaching them and enlightening them and being around them, because that's what I wanted to do, was hang out with kids. Their energy,
Mhm.
I think, is fascinating. And
There's something.
that kind of matched in my personality, I guess.
Mhm. Mhm. What advice would you give to the teacher listening, whether the person is a new teacher or an experienced teacher? What would you tell that person? Uh,
I mean, I think, to me, I specialized in the students that I fell in love with.
mm,
And I think that that's the one of the keys to kind of avoiding the burnout,
mhm,
is that you really love the kids so much, or whatever that specialty is, whether it's the content area, or whether it's the grade, or whether it's the language, or whatever the speciality is that teachers can get into.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Anyway,
Thank you for sharing your experience. It's been so much
awesome.
fun.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you all enjoyed that conversation between me and Kirsten. She definitely had a lot to say, and you can tell where her frustration lies, but you can also see that she had to really do some things differently in order to achieve the life that she wants. So it was a pleasure having her on, as I knew it would be. But before we get out of here, remember, Kirsten overcame by taking some decisive action. When she saw an issue, she got busy working on something new that would help. She stayed within her passion, which eventually led to her stepping away from the education system completely. But she's still a teacher through and through, no matter what, and will continue to change lives, just in a different capacity. You may be going through the same metamorphosis, and it's okay. Better yet, welcome it with open arms, because you never know what changes you could make in order to put you in the best place where you need to be. You may need to move to Puerto Rico. Because you enjoyed what you heard from this episode, go join the Teacher Triumphs Facebook group. Me and Jen created it as a way to help you overcome burnout and balance life by building community with other wonderful educators. Thank you for listening. I'll be back next Monday and Thursday with more Teacher Tales. Keep teaching, keep learning, and I will see you all on the next journey.